The smell of fried plantains filled the large, quiet kitchen. Chioma stirred the thick vegetable soup slowly, her eyes watching the bubbling pot. The clock on the wall ticked softly. It was almost 6:30 p.m. She knew the boss and his wife would return home any minute now. Everything had to be perfect. The rice was done. The meat was soft and well spiced. The kitchen sparkled like glass. This was her routine every evening for over a year now. Chioma worked quietly, never making mistakes, always on time. Chioma was 24, but she cooked like someone with decades of experience. She didn't just cook food, she made magic. The boss once said her jollof rice reminded him of his late mother's recipe. That made her smile for days. Every evening, she followed the food timetable Madam gave her. She wanted to keep the job as long as she could. The pay was good. She had her own small room in the boys' quarters behind the mansion, and she didn't need to worry about rent or bills. Most days, she felt safe, comfortable, even lucky. When the boss and Madam left for work each morning in their shiny black car, the house would go quiet. Chioma would clean the kitchen, sweep the floors, and wash the dishes. Then, after finishing all her chores, she would go to the sitting room, curl up on the soft white couch, and turn on the big TV. It felt like a dream. The remote had hundreds of channels. She watched cooking shows, Nollywood movies, and sometimes cartoons that made her laugh out loud. The air conditioner kept the room cool, and the leather seats were soft like pillows. But Chioma didn't stay inside all day. Sometimes, she stepped out through the back door and walked toward the small gatehouse near the front gate. That's where Baba Danjuma, the gateman, stayed. He was an old man with white hair, dark glasses, and a loud, funny laugh. He called Chioma Madam Chef, and she called him Officer Dan. They had become friends. He had an old game of Ludo he kept on a wooden stool outside. Most afternoons, they played and talked. He told stories about his village, about snakes that could talk and monkeys that stole money. Chioma would laugh so hard her belly ached. Sometimes, she brought him snacks, meat pies, buns, or fruit she cut in the kitchen. He'd always say, "God will bless you, my daughter." Life inside the mansion felt calm and sweet. Everything was fine with Chioma. She got whatever she wanted. Good food, clean clothes, her own space to sleep, and a smart TV to watch. Madam even bought her a new phone once, a sleek pink one with a clear case. She had no complaints. The boss treated everyone in the house well. Even though he was strict, he wasn't cruel. His one major rule was simple, but serious. Nobody was allowed to leave the compound without his permission. Not Chioma. Not Baba Danjuma. Not even the cleaners that came once a month. It didn't matter if someone was sick or if a family member called, they had to wait for his go-ahead. At first, it sounded strange to Chioma. But with time, she stopped questioning it. After all, she didn't really need to go out. Groceries were delivered. Madam sometimes brought her clothes or creams from the supermarket. Baba Danjuma never left his post either. He obeyed the rule like it was law. And since the boss paid everyone on time, gave bonuses, and even bought them food and toiletries without asking for anything back, they all just accepted the rule like it was normal. Then, one sunny afternoon, something unusual happened. Chioma was in the kitchen, tying her apron and getting ready to make ofensala, the boss's favorite white soup. It was a Thursday, and she knew he would want it hot and spicy with soft yam balls and dried catfish. She had just peeled the yam when the doorbell rang. Baba Danjuma answered it, as usual, and came into the kitchen looking puzzled. "Madam Chef," he said, scratching his grey beard. "Someone there outside." "Dispatch rider." He carry one big carton say no meat. He talk say Madam send am. Chioma frowned and wiped her hands on a towel. Madam never sent meat without calling first. Still, curiosity pulled her outside. The dispatch rider stood by a red motorcycle, holding a white curtain sealed with tape. He wore a blue jacket and helmet with a tinted visor. His voice was calm but hurried. "This is for Chioma," he said. "Madam told me to bring it today. I'm in a rush." Chioma blinked. "Did she call you?" "Yes," he said quickly. "She's busy now. She said you should use it to cook the soup before she gets back." The man handed the box to her and walked off before she could ask more questions. He jumped on his bike and sped off, the engine roaring. Chioma stood by the sink, staring at the sealed curtain. She took a knife and cut the tape open. As the flaps of the box peeled back, a wave of strong, sour smell hit her nose. "Oh!" She covered her mouth. The meat inside looked fresh, but the smell was not right. It wasn't the usual scent of raw goat or beef. There was something strange about it. Bitter. Like it had been soaked in blood for too long. Her stomach turned, but she forced herself to breathe through her mouth. Maybe the cold from the box made the smell worse. Maybe it would be fine once she washed it. She took the meat out, washed it twice in warm water and salt, and added ginger and onions to kill the smell. Then, as always, she cooked with care, grinding spices, stirring the soup, tasting, adjusting the flavor until it was rich and creamy. When she was done, the ofensola looked perfect. The boss and madam arrived home just as she finished setting the table. She greeted them, bowed slightly, and stepped aside as they sat down to eat. They didn't say much, just picked up their spoons and began to eat with calm faces. After clearing the kitchen, Chioma packed a small bowl of the soup with pounded yam and carried it to Baba Danjuma's gate post. He was sitting on his stool, as usual, reading an old newspaper and sipping gari from a plastic cup. "Officer Dan," Chioma called softly with a smile. "Hot soup don't land." But the old man looked up with tired eyes and slowly shook his head. "Oh, no vex, my daughter. My bell no dey too fine today. I go just manage this gari." Chioma blinked. Again. This wasn't the first time. Lately, every time she brought food that had meat delivered from outside, Baba Danjuma always refused. Sometimes he'd say he had a sore throat. Other times, he'd claim he had already eaten. Once, he said he was fasting, but she had seen him eating roasted corn just 2 hours before. It wasn't just him. The dry cleaner, the gardener who came on weekends, even the plumber, whenever there was meat from outside, they all quietly refused to eat. Only the boss and madam ate it. Every time. Without questions. Without complaints. Chioma thought about it for a moment. Then, like always, she waved the thought away. Maybe they're just picky, she told herself, smiling awkwardly. Rich people get walla. She returned to the kitchen, humming softly to herself. But deep inside, something began to stir. A small crack in the peace she had known for over a year. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, something wasn't as perfect as it seemed in the house. Months passed, and life inside the mansion continued to feel normal, or almost normal. Chioma stayed focused on her cooking, her chores, and her peaceful routine. The boss and madam remained kind and quiet, and they praised her food more than ever. Every time she served them, madam would smile and say, "Chioma, you're the best thing that's ever happened to this house." And every few weeks, just like clockwork, the dispatch rider came again. He always arrived around noon. Same bike. Same helmet. Same box. He never stayed long. Just handed the curtain over, said madam had sent it, and rode off without waiting for questions. Chioma stopped being nervous about it. She told herself the smell was normal. Maybe the meat had traveled far. Maybe the freezer was too cold and changed the scent. Whatever it was, nothing bad had happened so far. So she continued to cook. But then, one quiet Thursday afternoon, everything changed. The sun was high. The air felt heavy, like it was waiting for something. Chioma had just finished peeling yam when the doorbell rang. Baba Danjuma opened the gate and called, "Madam Chef. It don't happen again, your friend don't come." Chioma came out smiling. The dispatch rider stood there like always, box in hand, silent, unreadable. "From Madam," he said quickly. She nodded, took the carton, thanked him, and he drove off, his engine roaring into the distance. Inside the kitchen, she placed the box on the table, took a deep breath, and sliced it open. That familiar smell hit her immediately. Strong. Sour. Metallic. She frowned but said nothing. She had learned to ignore it. She began washing the meat in warm water with lemon and salt. As usual, she boiled it a little before slicing it into smaller chunks. She was halfway through cutting when her knife hit something hard. Clink. She paused. Her fingers gently pushed the piece aside, flipping it over to see what had stopped the blade. Then her heart dropped. It wasn't a bone. It wasn't fat. It wasn't anything she had seen before. It was small. Pale. Curved slightly. With a faint nail on top. It looked like a human finger. Chioma froze. She stared at it, her hand trembling. The water around it had turned pink from the meat. The smell rose again, sharper now, almost like blood. "No," she whispered to herself. "It can't be." She reached for it with shaking hands and held it closer to the light. The shape. The size. The way the skin folded near the knuckle. It wasn't from a goat. Or a cow. Or a pig. It looked too real. Too human. Her knees went weak, and she dropped the piece back into the bowl with a splash. She stumbled backward, gasping for air. Her hands shook so badly she almost knocked over the pot on the stove. What was she cooking? What had she been cooking all these months? She turned slowly and looked toward the dining room, where the boss and madam would soon sit, smiling as they ate. Chioma's mind screamed for answers. But all she could feel was a deep, cold fear settling in her chest like a shadow. Something was very, very wrong in this house. Chioma stood still in the middle of the kitchen. The bowl of meat sat on the counter like a monster in disguise. The piece that looked like a finger floated quietly among the chunks, silent, damning. Her breath was shaky, but she didn't panic. Not out loud. On the outside, she remained calm. She wiped her hands with a cloth. Adjusted her apron. Slowly returned the suspicious meat back into the pot and covered it, just like she did every other day. But inside her head, thoughts raced like a storm. They've been eating this. The others know. That's why they always refuse the meat. And I've been cooking it. I've been feeding them. Her stomach twisted, and she almost vomited. But she bit her lip, held her breath, and forced her body to stay still. Now wasn't the time to act afraid. Now was the time to escape. Chioma glanced at the kitchen clock. 4:12 p.m. The boss and madam would return around 5 p.m., just like always. She had less than an hour. But escaping wasn't easy. She remembered the rules. The gate only opened with permission. There were cameras around the house. Baba Danjuma always had his walkie-talkie, ready to report any movement directly to the boss. Chioma's heart thudded harder. She couldn't run. Not yet. She had to be smart. She had to plan. Escape was not just difficult, it was nearly impossible. The mansion sat like a silent fortress in the heart of the city. A place that looked beautiful from outside, but inside, secrets whispered through the walls. Thick, white fences rose around the compound, high as a tree and topped with electric wires that buzzed faintly in the night. No ladder could reach them. No jumping over. No squeezing through. The only way out was the front gate. And Baba Danjuma, the gateman, never left his post. Every evening, the gate stayed locked, chained, and watched. Chioma had once tried casually asking for the key, saying she wanted to throw something out. Baba Danjuma had smiled stiffly and said, "Madam, no go like that. You know the rules." That was all. But Chioma knew there had to be a way. She began to wait for a night when the power flickered, when a noise might distract him, when maybe, just maybe, she could slip away. And finally, one night, she tried. It was past midnight. The house was quiet. The boss and madam were upstairs. The lights were dimmed. Outside, the air was thick and still. Chioma had carefully packed a small bag, just clothes, her phone, and a little money she had secretly saved. She wore soft sneakers so her footsteps wouldn't echo. She crept down the hallway, bag in hand, her breath shallow, her heart thudding in her ears. She reached the back door. It creaked faintly as she opened it, stepping out into the shadows behind the house. She tiptoed past the generator shed and toward the narrow path that led to the side of the compound. Then, a voice behind her. "Where you dey go, Chioma?" She froze. Baba Danjuma stepped out of the shadows, holding his torchlight low, his eyes serious but not angry. She didn't speak. He didn't shout. Didn't raise an alarm. He just sighed. "I see say you don't dey notice things where you no suppose notice." Chioma stood still, her bag heavy in her hand. He walked closer and gently took the bag from her. "Come. You go follow me." They walked back into the house in silence. No words. No threats. He didn't hit her. Didn't lock her up. Didn't tell the boss. He just took her back to her room, dropped the bag on the floor, and looked her in the eye. "I no go say anything. But you gats be careful. Them no dey play here." Then he turned and left, locking her door from the outside. The next morning, her door was open again. Her bag was still there, untouched. No one said anything. The boss and madam behaved as usual. Ate their food. Smiled at her. Praised the taste of her soup. Chioma acted like nothing happened. But inside, she was falling apart. Every step she took felt like walking on broken glass. She didn't know who to trust. Not even Baba Danjuma, who had both saved and trapped her in the same night. Still, she went back to cooking. Cleaning. Smiling. But her eyes stayed sharp. Watching. Listening. Planning. Because now, she understood something important. If she was going to escape this house, she'd need more than courage. She'd need help. And she had to find it soon, before the next meat delivery arrived. It was a quiet afternoon. The sun was high, and the compound shimmered in the heat. Everything looked normal, the house was calm, the air was still, and the smell of jollof rice lingered faintly from the kitchen. Chioma had just finished cooking lunch. Madam and the boss were upstairs in their rooms, resting. The gateman was sitting at his usual spot by the gate, reading a newspaper. Everything was just normal. But today, Chioma wasn't thinking about food or movies or chores. She was thinking about freedom. Then, something happened. The driver, Mr. Connor, returned early from his usual afternoon errands. He was always calm, quiet, and extremely careful. He never left the car open, not even for a second. But today, he drove in quickly, parked near the front entrance, and hurried out of the car, leaving the door wide open. He mumbled something about needing to collect the documents from Madam. In a blink, he had disappeared into the house. Chioma's heart jumped. Her eyes locked on the car. The door was still open. No one was watching. Her bag was already packed, hidden behind the kitchen cupboard for weeks now. She moved quickly, quietly. Her feet barely touched the ground as she raced to the kitchen, grabbed her bag, and crept out the side door. The heat wrapped around her like a blanket as she moved toward the car, her breath stuck in her throat. The compound was quiet. Baba Danjuma didn't look up. She slipped into the back seat, ducked low, and pulled a small cloth from her bag to cover herself. Her heart pounded wildly in her chest. She waited. Every second felt like an hour. Then, she heard footsteps. The driver. The front door opened, and Mr. Connor stepped in, mumbling to himself and adjusting his cap. He didn't glance at the back seat. He just started the engine and reversed slowly out of the compound. The gate opened. The car rolled through. And the gate closed behind them. Chioma's hands trembled. For the first time in over a year, she was outside the mansion's walls. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just held her breath and prayed. But the danger wasn't over. She had no idea where Mr. Connor was going. If he discovered her before they got far enough, he might turn back. He might raise the alarm. The car slowed down. Chioma peeked out from the window and realized they had arrived at a large, noisy market. The place buzzed with voices, music, and honking cars. People moved in every direction, selling, buying, shouting, laughing. Mr. Connor parked near a small shop, looked around, then stepped out of the car and disappeared inside. Chioma's heartbeat exploded. This was her moment. She didn't wait. She grabbed her bag, opened the door slowly, and slipped out. Her feet touched the ground, and she walked fast, very fast, moving past a group of women selling peppers, past a crying child tugging on her mother's wrapper, past a man dragging a sack of onions. Then she started running. Her shoes hit the concrete hard, but she didn't stop. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't care. She just needed to find help. Somewhere. Someone. Then, through the crowd, she spotted a small group of police officers standing beside a patrol van, watching traffic and controlling the crowd. Without thinking, she ran to them. "Please," she cried. "Help me. Please." They turned, surprised to see her so frightened. "Calm down, young lady," one of them said. "What's going on?" Tears spilled from her eyes. Her hands trembled as she clutched her bag. "I've been working in a house. Cooking. I think I've been cooking human meat. I didn't know. But I saw fingers, and they brought meat in cartons. I tried to escape, they wouldn't let me leave." The officer stared at her in silence. Then one of them gently took her by the arm. "Let's go to the station. You need to explain everything properly." At the station, Chioma sat on a bench, her head in her hands, her voice breaking as she told the full story. From the day she was hired. The first time she smelled the strange meat. To how everyone avoided eating it, except the boss and his wife. She told them about the electric fences, the locked gates, the cartons of meat from the dispatch rider. Everything. The officers looked at one another. They knew this wasn't an ordinary story. They didn't waste time. That same evening, 2 black police vans drove toward the house. Chioma sat quietly in the back of one of them, surrounded by officers, her heart pounding. When they got to the mansion, the gate was opened by a surprised Baba Danjuma. He raised his hands in confusion, but the police pushed past him. The officers stormed the compound. The boss and his wife were inside, relaxing on the balcony with glasses of wine. They didn't see it coming. They were handcuffed on the spot. "No. What's this? We've done nothing wrong," the boss shouted. Madam screamed, "You can't do this. We are respected people. Do you know who we are?" But the police weren't listening. They searched the house from top to bottom. Inside the freezer, in a locked room Chioma had never seen before, they found more meat. Some pieces, unmistakably human. Everyone was silent. Even Baba Danjuma didn't speak. Chioma stood at the gate, watching, her body weak, her knees shaking. The case shocked the entire country. News spread fast, wealthy couple arrested for serving human meat in secret, and everyone wanted to know more. The police worked day and night, gathering evidence. They traced the dispatch rider, checked all records, searched the house again, and even questioned former workers. What they discovered was chilling. For years, the boss and his wife had been running a secret network. Nobody knew exactly how many people had been hurt, but the truth was darker than anyone could imagine. Finally, the case went to court. The High Court of Nigeria listened to all the details. Chioma was brave. She stood in front of the judges and told them her story. She cried. She shook. But she didn't hold back. The courtroom was silent as she spoke. Even the judge looked shaken. At the end of the trial, the court gave its judgment. Life imprisonment. The boss and his wife were found guilty of murder, trafficking, and hiding the truth. They would never be free again. The mansion was sealed. The case was closed. And Chioma. She was finally free. No more fear. No more nightmares. She walked out of the courtroom with her head held high, the sun warm on her face. She had escaped evil. She had fought it with truth. And she had won. Thank you for watching my video today. I hope you learned a good lesson from Chioma's story. Sometimes, being silent can keep you in danger. But being bold can save your life and others too. So be brave. Speak the truth. And never ignore what your heart knows is wrong. See you next time.